I've been a fan of looking into lost and cancelled media for as long as I remember, especially when it comes to animation. You've probably stuck around for 4 years and witnessed some old videos of mine told from the perspective of, who else? Spider-Man. The less we speak of his canon event, the better. He discussed a cancelled Lego Batman sequel, a better version of the third SpongeBob movie, a movie where Marvin the Martian gets groped, and one where Donkey from Shrek plays Hong Kong Phooey eating a used urinal cake. Yes, that was gonna be a thing. With how many animated films and shows that get made, there's always gonna be a lot of them stuck in development limbo with seemingly no chance of ever escaping, either because of financial problems, creative disputes, or CEOs naturally being stingy fucks. Hello everyone, Stardweeb here to ruin your day, and what better way to ruin one's day than to remind them of animated films receiving the same treatment as a famous YouTuber. Keep in mind that at least 1 or 2 of these cancelled films might age like spoiled milk. Just saying, had this video been released 3 or 4 years ago, Nimona would have definitely counted, as it was the final movie by Blue Sky, but Disney shut them down in favor of parading their franchise's corpse on the internet, just like Logan Paul. Cut to 2025, and the movie's basically 2 years old now. Aw, my baby girl is growing so fast. For today, I will strictly look into films that straight up never happened, rather than beta versions of movies that already did happen, which sadly means there'll be no Kingdom of the Sun, no Chris Farley Shrek, and absolutely no asshole cowboy dolls. So grab a box of tissues and a Bureau of Otherworldly Operations backpack loaded with stolen convenience store snacks as I talk about a number of unmade animated films that, not gonna lie, would have probably been better than most of the output we get these days. Let's just jump right in. This is my shortest intro I think I've ever written so far, and I'm not gonna ruin it.
All I wanna do is see you turn into a giant woman, a giant woman.
You guys remember that scene in Zootopia where King Candy Mad Hatter Ludo Goatman tries to sell bootleg DVDs? Obviously they're meant to be quirky animal parodies of Wreck-It Ralph, Tangled, and Baymax from Fortnite, but among these parodies is a film that thought it was on the team. This is where Gigantic comes in. To this day, I'm genuinely shocked that Disney never properly made an adaptation of Jack and the Beanstalk. Seems like it fit right in with the likes of Snow White, Pinocchio, and The Little Mermaid solely for being based on a classic fairy tale in the Shrek cinematic universe. I mean, I guess there was Fun and Fancy Free, which was a package film that had a short where Mickey, Donald, and Goofy accurately predict 2025. They were onto something back then and you didn't even notice. All of this would have changed thanks to Tangled co-director Nathan Greno, who announced in 2015 at D23 that Gigantic was officially in production for a March 2018 release date. The story of Gigantic was described as a definitive adaptation set during the Age of Exploration, where the titular Jack from the fairy tale would have discovered a civilization of giants hidden in clouds. One of these giants he befriends is an 11-year-old girl named Inma, who's said to be 60 foot tall and a lot to control. So basically a
Giant woman!
That dude is definitely gonna be in a wheelchair. Aside from Inma, there would have also been some storm giants that would have served as antagonists, as well as multiple pieces of concept art shown off at D23, along with some work-in-progress footage that has yet to be leaked on 4chan, assuming it's no longer been hacked by chicken jockeys. On top of it all, the film was a musical written by none other than songwriting duo Kirsten Anderson and Robert Lopez of Frozen fame, meaning we missed out on potential Let It Go style parody covers flooding 2014 YouTube of Little Man? That better not be a euphemism for my dick. And that's as far as we knew about it, because for some unknown reason, presumably creative differences, it was delayed for November 2018, then moved to 2020, until finally falling through in 2017. And what released in 2018 instead? Nothing. Wreck-It Ralph never got a sequel, you silly fucker. Disney seemingly had a lot of faith in this film being made. Again, there was that one Easter egg in Zootopia that heavily implies that Duke Weaselton is the one and only being on Earth that has a copy of Gigantic, and he's not even real, so no Coyote vs. Acme hashtag for you. All we have for the movie right now is the aforementioned concept art and of course a dedicated panel at D23. Then again, you never know when they turn a 180 and announce it being put back on the menu. I mean, after all, Frozen went through its own trial and error too, and boom, now it's getting like 4 more sequels. Hell, this very film was in development as far back as 2013, when it was originally gonna have Jack involved in a potential love triangle between the daughter of a merchant family and a nobleman named Marco. If his last name is Diaz, I swear to fucking God. So there's hope for Gigantic yet, but until then, Disney will move on to bigger and better things. Like Wish. This was the thanks we got. Happy 100 years, everyone.
I was right in the middle of a fucking reptile zoo. And somebody was giving booze to these goddamn things.
To my surprise, Pixar has been relatively unscathed when it comes to finishing their movies. Pretty much every movie they've ever made managed to make it out of developmental hell, whether it be the first Toy Story or, I don't know, Brave. They were all a bitch to make, yet here they are. But unlike those movies, this one was a bitch to make and didn't get made. Announced in 2008, Newt is what happens when the last remaining blue-footed newts on the planet are forced together by science to save their kind. And they hate each other? Protagonists, Newt and Brooke, embark on a perilous journey discovering that finding a mate never goes as planned. Love, as it turns out, is not a science. Newt was gonna be the feature film debut of Gary Wrightstorm, who's been a sound designer for a number of blockbuster hits and even Pixar's own shorts and movies. As of now, he's only ever fully directed an original short called Lifted and a Toy Story short in 2011, the year the movie was originally gonna release. But as with plenty of these movies, it was delayed for an unknown date in 2012 until it was removed from the development schedule altogether and found dead in the water. A popular speculation for why it met its fate was due to being too similar to Blue Sky's Rio. Can somebody stop playing that fucking Vine Boom sound? But while insiders, including the registered hugger John Lasseter, admitted to the parallels, the real reason would be revealed in a 2014 interview with former President Ed Catmull. Turns out that Newt was sort of doomed from the start and wasn't working the way they wanted it. So in the end, they gave the idea to Pete Docter, who would rework the project into a completely different concept about feelings with feelings. And that's how Inside Out was born. Not from what happens when a mama and daddy movie love each other very much, but from Newt not being qualified as an emotion despite letting it As of now, this is Pixar's only movie that never got made, which always mystifies me. Again, it always seemed like all of their movies went through some form of trial and error in order to come out on top. Like, even the very first fully CGI movie ever made was close to being canned because Woody was gonna be a massive P word. And you can say what you want about shit like, I don't know, The Good Dinosaur, it is genuinely a miracle they even got made at all. So to think that this was the one film where all the cracks started to show in its pre-production phase is kinda crazy. Like, let it be known that none of that showed when they would later write a twist involving Buzz meeting a future version of himself who turned into Emperor Zurg and, no, you don't get to do that. Regardless, while it's sad that this won't be made, at least as a compromise, we still have the B-tier Mark Zuckerberg movie. Actually, now that I mention it, Disney, where is Rio 3? No, I don't want Ice Age 6. No one wants Ice Age 6. Give us Rio 3, you coward. And then along came Zeus. He hurled his thunderbolt. Before the age of Spider-Man and other cool stuff, life was extremely hard if you lived during the 2010s as an apparent fan of Sony Pictures Animation. It seemed like an inverse of Pixar's golden age, only it felt like the dark ages, because this studio was borderline a content farm of just some of the most creatively bankrupt ideas known to man, and as a result, they were like the bro trying to fit in with all the other industry giants, which was a shame too, because in the few moments they locked in and produced a genuine banger, they almost felt like afterthoughts rather than proof of their hidden talents. And for that time being, we were graced with only the best they could offer, like the Smurfs, The Star, all the open season sequels, and of course, how can we forget everyone's favorite movie to hate, that one Surf's Up sequel where Vince McMahon's persona drinks from a fish's asshole. So you know, naturally the stuff they cancelled was gonna be infinitely better than what we got. Their most famous scrapped films were Medusa and a fully animated Popeye movie. The former would have been directed by MLP creator Lauren Faust, whose take on Medusa was a normal girl who's overwhelmed with fitting in with the status quo. Her resulting popularity would cause a jealous goddess to curse her with monster snake hair, so she embarks on a quest alongside an oddball team of Greeks where she learns the importance of being different. As for Popeye, it was going to be directed by none other than Genndy Tartakovsky. He mainly worked on Hotel Transylvania at Sony, but he also created Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, and Primal. His take on Popeye was described to be as, quote, artful and unrealistic as possible. Nothing was really known about it since, other than the release date for 2014. It would later be delayed for the following years, and what released instead was the viral test animation uploaded on YouTube, which was more of a taste of what it could look like as opposed to a clip from the actual thing. And my god, does it hold up after 10 years, because I fucking love this animation style. It captures the vibes of the old cartoons perfectly, and Genndy was absolutely the right fit for a Popeye film. Also, SpongeBob is here and he's great.
Don't worry, Miss Oil, I'll save you.
But just like clockwork, this beautifully animated test clip that was incredibly well received had to go to waste, because the executives who saw it went like, Genndy, we really like your take of Popeye, but unfortunately at Sony, we're prioritizing shit. And I don't mean make more shit movies, I'm talking literal shit. Patrick Stewart shit, am I right? You know what I mean, right? And that's how we got the Emoji Movie. Now, am I implying that Popeye was cancelled for a movie about those faces you spam when you see a caked up drawing of Ramona Flowers? Well, no, I just wanted to say that. In reality, it was scrapped for pretty similar reasons for why Medusa was scrapped, as both directors left the project in 2015 due to the usual creative differences stuff. Though Lauren Faust left her project and Sony, leaving Robert Rugen to direct the film in 2017. But after 2 years of development, Medusa was ironically turned to stone, despite having a pretty promising future for its production. As for Genndy, he moved on from Popeye to direct an original story called Can You Imagine, about a journey through a boy's imagination. This one also got canned, and Hotel Transylvania 3 came out instead. All we've had for it since was this extremely fun-looking concept art that gives me Wander Over Yonder vibes. Thankfully, or so it would seem, in May 2020, it was shipped to King Features Syndicate, coming full circle, as that's where Popeye was first born, as a comic, among other things that didn't include cartoons. But alas, just like a full circle, it goes all the way back around to where it started, which is a roundabout way of me saying that I like butt. In a Primal interview on July 21st, 2022, Genndy was asked, what happened to the Popeye film? His response was that it was basically dead. They had a successful story and test made, but the higher-ups wanted their own version of Popeye that Genndy wasn't willing to do. And with that, you can put your Emoji Movie allegations on Reddit to rest. However, not even 24 hours after depression rose by 50%, a crazy individual couldn't hold his depression any longer and uploaded an entire 80-minute rough animatic of the movie just innocently on YouTube. It gained such a huge traction on the internet to a point where Sony DMCA'd the original upload for the movie that they never fucking released, though thankfully it's been archived on other websites. Since it's been nearly 3 whole years, watching it depresses me knowing we missed out on so many potential visual gags delivered with this gorgeous animation. As well, it had a really sweet take on Popeye and Olive's relationship and a good message of acceptance that's just lost to time. None of this is gonna be finished, and it makes me sad. Right now, the original character of Popeye is in the public domain, so should any indie animator be up to the challenge, perhaps we'll see a dedicated Popeye head remake this film in Blender or something. Hell, it could be you for all I know. I mean, if the guys behind Flow took 5.5 years to make it using Blender, had no dialogue, and, if this means anything, won an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, surely someone with the right amount of hardware and talent could have a go at it too. Or not, they could just make the 1 millionth public domain twisted childhood bullshit horror movie cinematic universe that is gonna make a bunch of money because, well, wow, it's scary. It's like the thing you recognized as a child, and now it wants to kill people. Yeah, ooh, scary. In any case, it's 2025, and in an age where Sony's finally willing to let their animation team cook whatever, it's still rather unfortunate that we'll never know what kind of spinach they were eating when they decided to bring this ship into your shore and throw away the ore forever. 'Cause I can't fight this feeling anymore. I've forgotten what point I was trying to make.
What car is this?
Oh, the one with all the movies that are totally out of ideas.
The one with all the lame sequels.
Here's something to fill my unmade Pixar quota, because in the early 2000s, just like your parents, Disney and Pixar were on the verge of a divorce. There was a huge disagreement between former owner of Pixar, Steve Jobs, and at the time Disney CEO Michael Eisner regarding their distribution deal. You see, in the 90s, Pixar had a 3-picture deal that was later boosted up to a 5th and 6th picture, since Toy Story 2 apparently doesn't count as it's a sequel. This deal meant that Disney would be given full ownership of whatever Pixar created up until their upcoming film Cars at the time. To make an incredibly confusing story about failing marriages short, in 2004 Eisner had his plan B in the form of Pixar, otherwise known as Circle 7 Animation, after Steve announced that they wouldn't renew their contract with the Mouse House. Circle 7 was essentially a content farm only made to shit out straight to DVD sequels based on their most successful and beloved films that they owned. This included Finding Nemo 2, Monsters Inc. 2 Lost in Scaradise, and a completely different version of Toy Story 3. Finding Nemo 2 was gonna be about Nemo discovering his lost brother Remy, who wasn't a rat yet, and a role reversal of the original by having Marlin captured instead. Monsters Inc. 2 was gonna be about Mike and Sully delivering Boo a present before finding out that she moved away, leading the duo to search for her in the human realm and eventually split up. Finally, there's Toy Story 3, which had the most development work put into it with concept art, tests, and even an entire script made. In this version, Buzz Lightyear malfunctions and is sent to the factory in Taiwan for repairs, only to find out that a huge recall on action figures leads them to be destroyed. So Woody and the gang send themselves to Taiwan in order to save him. Meanwhile, Buzz meets up with other members of the island of recalled toys, including a Mexican robot, a lady with scissor legs, and a knockoff rival toy with a whack-ass jawline. Personally, my favorite of these scrap sequels is Monsters Inc. 2. I can legit see this being an actual sequel Pixar would make. The rest of them are, certainly interesting. Like, seriously, we were very close to having Woody speak in broken English. But thankfully, none of this matters in the long run, as all of these were scrapped by Bob Iger, who booted Michael's ass out and became Disney CEO in 2005. His first order of business was to do what most marriages couldn't do, and repair the relationship with $7.4 billion. This meant that Circle 7 Animation lived a short, pretty useless life, closing down in 2006, and John Lasseter became Chief Creative Officer of Disney Animation. Then some stuff happened, and so now he's at Skydance doing whatever's worth a standalone video. Since then, Pixar continued their golden age affairs while also making their own sequels, like a better version of Toy Story 3, Monsters University, and that one Disney Plus show that's the closest to a sequel we'll get, and Finding Dory. And also Cars 2, Incredibles 2, Cars 3, Toy Story Incredibles 4, Inside Out 2, A Bug's Life Toy 2, Story 5, no, that's just a documentary, Finding Nemo 3. How many fucking sequels are there, man?
I still see your shadows in my room. Can't take back the love that I gave you.
Of all the studios I've looked into, DreamWorks Animation might genuinely have the most interesting scrapped films I've seen. Most of these movies were just development pieces, sure, but somehow, there were films that made it so close to being finished that merchandise of Bizarro Jimmy Neutron here was made, and probably goes for 1 million V-Bucks if actually released. But by far their most infamous scrapped movie with a huge amount of potential for being one of their GOATs is Me and My Shadow. This quite possibly has the largest cult following out of any of these unreleased movies, so much so that it could very easily make for its own dedicated video. And it has. The most popular video on this movie was from Daz Reviews, made back before he fell off so far from grace. Anyways, Me and My Shadow centered around Daniel Grubb, played by the gay guy from Beauty and the Beast, living a boring life while his shadow, played by Flint Lockwood, breaks the rules of his world by wanting to help him. Both their lives are numbered, however, as a crime in the Shadow Realm forces Shadow Dan to take control of normal Dan, investigating said crime, and preventing a shadow villain from rebelling against the real world. The film had a unique blend of 2D and 3D animation, in which was gonna have its real world be in standard computer animation, while the shadows were made using traditional hand-drawn animation. There is a shitload of footage and dozens of tests and artwork made to demonstrate this. Like, if you thought what I'm showing you wasn't enough, don't cry, little DreamWorks fan. Uncle Internet's got enough unmade Me and My Shadow assets to feed you your entire life, because holy shit. There's concept art, pencil tests, animation tests, storyboard animation, animatics, fully rendered scenes, basically half the whole 9 yards was completed. So why, pray tell, would a film like this have so much work put into it just to be banished to the Shadow Realm? You get it? Because this movie's never coming out. Things started to unravel as early as when it started production for the spring 2013 release that ended up being November of that year instead. However, the higher-ups at DreamWorks had way more faith in Mr. Peabody and Sherman that they wanted it out before Me and My Shadow, so it was yet again delayed for March 2014. But in an ironic twist, the former was already behind schedule, so they pushed it back to the exact spring 2014 release date, completely eradicating Me and My Shadow from the schedule. Unfortunately for them, no one quite got it back then.
Sherman, I've got to get you out of here before you touch yourself.
And it ended up flopping at the box office, along with Penguins of Madagascar that same year, losing millions of dollars for the studio. The following year, DreamWorks shut down its PDI division, laying off 500 workers in the process. This huge amount of downsizing led to multiple movies being cancelled, including, and sadly, Me and My Shadow. For a short time, yeah, bitch, I got you, there's still daylight.
I don't think that's daylight.
In late 2015, Edgar Wright, yes, that Edgar Wright, was interested in reviving the project under a different story and name while still keeping their initial vision. But in 2016, Universal made a very unfortunate purchase of DreamWorks Animation, resulting in, you guessed it, more management shakeups. Yippee! And just like my optimism, it died. And the best part, this wouldn't even be the last time they were under new management. It seemed like every year since it fell through, we got more and more breadcrumbs of this incredibly charming looking movie that will most likely never see the light of day. Even as recently as the early 2020s, an animator confirmed that Jeffrey Katzenberg was given a special screening of the movie in 2012 and stated, in his own words, it was not the $200 million he wanted. Keep in mind, this was the same guy who wanted a Goofy movie to cast Steve Martin as Goofy in his normal voice, so thankfully they were like, fuck that, after a screening and kept Bill Farmer in instead. Basically, my point is that this man has no dick. It really is a shame to see this amount of work go to waste, because just the premise alone makes me believe this would have fit right in with their most recent experimental hits like The Wild Robot, The Bad Guys, and Dogman, but alas, it didn't change the fact that Shadow Dan was permanently shadow banned. Please subscribe, I only make one video a month.
I hate to be political, but release Coyote versus Acme!
Okay, so here's a bunch of random ones I want to briefly mention because another one of my vids had a random segment. So here's more random bullshit. Possibly the most recent studio to actively erase their own history is Warner Bros. They easily have the most relevance when it comes to canceling near-complete animated productions more than releasing them. Like, dude, fuck the election. You wanna know what everyone was talking about? An entire Looney Tunes movie being algae-rhythmed because they needed another couple $1 million in tax write-offs. Despite this, Coyote vs. Acme will be spared because the same guys who saved the day the Earth blew up made everyone a believer and actually bought it for a theatrical release next year. The same cannot be said for Scoob Holiday Haunt, a planned prequel to the 2020 Scoob movie that was going to be released on HBO Max in 2022, but it, along with DC's Batgirl, became one of the many tragic victims of the WB Discovery purge. Apparently they let them finish the whole thing, like animation, music, whatnot, yet they still choose to not release it at all? Where were all the hashtag release Scoob Holiday Haunt people on Twitter? Come on, guys. Besides, why would you even bother making it if you're just gonna have it locked away like that? I mean, just release the fucking thing on DVD. Who cares if it makes no money? At least to be out. But I digress. There was also Driftwood, a sci-fi movie by Cartoon Network with only this art piece to go by. A Batman Beyond movie pitch by some of the Spider-Verse guys that I'm really hoping is still being made. A planned Looney Tunes musical called Bye Bye Bunny that had its entire team laid off after it was scrapped. They were also going to distribute Sony's 2D animated film Fixed, but thank God for Genndy Tartakovsky that it's releasing on Netflix instead. But don't think they're off the hook just yet. In fact, they were already there for years. They canceled a bunch of shows, most notably the Bone adaptation, a hand-drawn animated movie called Ember made by the guys who did Claws. I cannot think of a bigger loss than this, but what can you do? This is Hollywood. Speaking of, George Gutierrez had some projects planned with Netflix, like an original series titled Kung Fu Space Punch, and an original movie called I, Chihuahua that had a script made but never materialized. Before the purge of both studios, George was in place of Jason Segel working on a Lego movie titled The Billion Brick Race, which was inspired by classic racing films I never watched, like Cannonball Run. Concept art was made, including its main cast of characters, and not gonna lie, had this come out, we would have definitely seen this girl on that one guy's thumbnail. Lego Batman movie was gonna have a sequel exploring his relationship with Joker in the Justice League, Godfather Part 2 style, but it fell through after Warner Bros. Gave up the Lego film rights to Universal, who did nothing with them until 4 years later when they released the Lego Pharrell Williams Kendrick Lamar movie. Oh, and the follow-ups? Sure, why not? Multiple attempts at a Sonic movie were made, including one by He Who Shall Not Be Named, one that would have tied into a Sonic game for the Sega Saturn that also never happened, and even a potential Knuckles spin-off at DreamWorks. It probably doesn't contain the Flames of Disaster though. Aardman 2 had some unreleased movies under DreamWorks, including Tortoise vs. Hare, that had assets made and then promptly destroyed, and script problems all over the place, which led them to put it on life support no longer. An adaptation of the Twits set in the Stone Age called Crude Awakening was in development by John Cleese and Kirk D'Amico, but it fell through after Aardman and DreamWorks did the opposite of what Disney and Pixar did by actually getting that divorce. They each took a prehistoric child with them, resulting in DreamWorks making The Croods and Aardman making Early Man. Guys, raise your hand if you remember Early Man. TBH, these two were never much of a match made in heaven anyway, so I recommend checking out Animated Antics vid on their failing marriage. And finally, there's Big Bug Man, a 2D animated film about a candy factory employee who gets Spider-Man-handled by bugs and becomes a superhero. Literally all that's known about this production was the fact that it was the final ever role of Marlon Brando, so that makes 2 Godfather mentions, huh? He was originally gonna voice an evil businessman, but he requested to play a woman instead, so he was given a small part as Mrs. Sauer, who he straight up dressed as during recording, and despite needing oxygen throughout the session, it was the most fun he had since his role as Mark Anthony in Julius Caesar. In July 2004, however, Marlon sadly passed away at age 80, which just makes this even more depressing since it's for a movie that was planned for release between 2006 to 2008, but it never saw the light of day. I have no idea why or what happened to it, but one thing's for certain, he absolutely had a short but sweet way of going out, and that was by playing Mrs. Sauer. Absolute legend. Rest in peace, Queen.
He gave me all of Judy's records. Same pills, too. I'm somewhere over the rainbow right now.
And there you have it. Those were the cancelled films I wanted to talk about. Damn, to say we were robbed would be an understatement. There were so many potential bangers here and I'm only just scratching the surface. There's like a bajillion other movies I never mentioned yet. So I guess I could do the YouTuber thing by boosting up engagement. If you give this video more than 100 likes and subscribe, then perhaps a sequel will be made. Yay, more depression awaits, especially with these tariffs. Ha 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 ha. But mainly, potential classics we won't live long enough to see. Then again, I could be wrong. If Nimona taught us anything, it's that one of these projects might get picked up. What the fuck is that? One of these projects might get picked up by another studio. If Coyote vs. Acme taught us anything, it's that spamming a hashtag even at a movie in the same ballpark as Coyote vs. Acme works actually. And if the entire industry taught us anything at all, it's that animation takes a long time. People who do it for a living deserve respect. Take it from these three. I've been Mr. Stardweeb, and your day has been ruined. Oh my god, finally!